Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Define Disaster. This is Battlefield 4, and in today's weapon review, we're going to be taking a closer look at the P90 PDW exclusively available to the Engineer class in Battlefield 4. We're going to be looking at its stats, its strengths, and its weaknesses, and of course, when and how to best make use of this weapon. Now, some of you may be wondering why we're covering a Battlefield 4 weapon when the last video I made on this channel was Goodbye Battlefield 4. Now, in that video, I did ask you if you wanted to see a review on the P90 because I had already basically done the majority of the preparation needed for this video, and there was one lucky person down there below in the comments who still wanted to know about the P90 despite the imminent launch of Battlefield 1, and as such, I decided, well, may as well make this video and kind of put it as bonus in this week. So this is not replacing a video on Battlefield 1. You will be getting a first impressions video on Monday as scheduled per usual release. You're just getting this here on the weekend as bonus video if you so will. But with that being said, let's get straight into it. The stats of the P90, starting with the damage model with a maximum damage of 21 and a minimum damage of 12.5. We've got a PDW here that does less damage than your average PDW. We've also got a PDW here that will require a 6-shot kill on somebody wearing the defensive upgrade, even in close quarter. Once more, what's worth noting about this weapon, besides its relatively low max damage, is its relatively quick damage drop-off. In combination, this means that you're only really getting a 5-shot kill on a target not wearing the defensive upgrade out to 15 meters. This is in comparison to your normal PDW that usually would be performing a 5-shot kill all the way out to roughly 28 to 30 meters. With that being said though, you do have a very high fire rate at 900 rounds per minute. This is definitely close quarter capable and should keep your enemy relatively busy if they're close enough for you to hit your shots. Moving on then to the magazine size, this is what makes the P90 of course famous. Its larger magazine size at 50 plus 1, 51 bullets in total. You won't be having to reload this gun too often, which can provide a benefit in engaging multiple targets in close quarter. Moving on to the reload of this larger magazine, it's obviously going to take you longer with 2.9 seconds for the short reload and 3.55 for the long reload. This isn't as bad as reloading some of the MGs, but it's still significantly worse to some of the more competitive close quarter orientated guns in the game, especially when looking at the faster reloading PDWs such as the AS Val with I believe 1.85 or 1.95 seconds for a short reload. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, significantly faster than this, you could get yourself caught in close quarter reloading this gun, and then you're going to of course be in trouble. The recoil pattern of the P90 is relatively interesting in that it's very boring. It's almost identical in all directions. That's 0.32 vertical and 0.3 both horizontal to the left and to the right, making this gun extremely predictable, at the same time though annoying to control, which means is, well, the recoil to the left and right, while balance isn't that easy to compensate for, while of course the vertical recoil is relatively easy to get in. The first shot multiplier is however 2, so tap firing the P90 is going to be a little bit more difficult. In essence, the picture that we get from the P90 here from a recoil damage perspective is relatively easy to control for close quarter and medium range, but you compensate with this with a lesser damage output against most targets you will be facing. Moving on then to the accuracy of the P90 here, we've got values typical for a PDW and that they're not very good, with an ADS of 0.45, pretty terrible actually when thinking about it, and an ADS while moving, I thought I'd mention this, at 0.525, that's on the other hand very good, and hipfire while standing and moving at a value of 1.25, very competitive here, essentially allowing the P90 to be a very mobile weapon to be used while strafing or while hipfiring to great efficiency. Moving on then to the attachments of the P90, starting off with the optic. This is a standard RGS of your choice, Coyote in my case. Accessory, given that this is a close quarter weapon to be used mostly in TDM or maybe close quarter rush or conquest maps, you're going to be wanting to use a laser sight, especially given the strength of the hipfire on the P90. Just be aware that it may give away your position and you may need to turn it off in those cases. One of those may be smoke. Where things really, in my opinion, get interesting is when it comes to barrel attachments. Because we can't actually do any under barrel attachments, barrel attachments is the only attachment we still have left, and there's a number of different things you can effectively do to the P90, specializing it in different ways, shapes, or forms. In my opinion, the wisest or best way to use the P90 is a close quarter TDM exclusive game mode. A best example of that likely will be TDM on Zavod. There, of course, you're going to be wanting to use a suppressor, in my opinion. Staying off the minimap is key for TDM and can vitally help, especially in larger player counts when you're trying to flank somebody. Another way to run the P90 is either naked or with a compensator, making it a little bit more easy to control, especially for medium range engagements, allowing this weapon to maybe compete a little bit more with other PDWs because it is doing less damage. It's usually going to require one shot more to kill your enemy at anything above 50 meters, or often even when people are running the defensive upgrade, you may want to try to trump them with higher accuracy. That is higher accuracy derived from less recoil you're going to have to combat. Now there's another flip side to this argument. If your recoil control is very good, you may actually want to run the P90 with a heavy barrel, making this weapon much more accurate than your average PDW, actually pretty much in line with your average assault rifle. Now this is, of course, still with the strengths of being able to move while shoot and hip fire, highly accurate in close quarter and of course longer ranges, which means you end up having a weapon that may be a lot more accurate and easily controllable if you've got decent recoil control at medium to long range, but it is doing less damage than the competition. So you may be hitting more of your shots, but you will be doing less damage, and whether or not this is a good trade-off is hard to say. The P90 in essence is a difficult weapon to use because it just puts out so little damage. It's basically tickling the enemy with a high fire rate, which is fine if your enemy is in extreme close quarter and they don't have the defensive upgrade on. If, however, they're at medium range or anything beyond 15 meters, frankly, and they see you first, you're going to have to be lucky or just a more skilled player to pull off a clean kill on them with the P90, which leads slowly into playstyle and verdict. I'm not a huge fan of the P90, frankly, because I find it to be too unreliable. What I like so much about assault rifles or something like a FAMAS is at a certain distance, independent of whether or not they have the defensive upgrade or not, I know after 4 or 5 shots I'm getting my kill. This of course also depends on shot placement. The P90 is not that simple. First of all, it's highly inaccurate at medium range. You can't burst fire it, you can't tap fire it because of its higher first shot recoil multiplier, although this is of course subject to debate and individual recoil control. Furthermore, once you are in close quarter and taking down your enemies, assuming they don't have the defensive upgrade, once you run out of that nice and comfortable 50 shot magazine, you're going to be subject to a longer reload than most guns in the game. Now, I'm somebody who likes to keep his magazine topped up, constantly full. Now, this is maybe a bad habit, some would argue, but this is the way I play, and as such, I spend more time with the P90 reloading it than I would with other guns, even though the magazine size is larger. That's not to say it is a bad gun, however. I did find it relatively easy to go on kill streaks, especially in TDM, independent of the setup I was using, be that a compensator, a heavy barrel, or a suppressor. If I would have to give a recommendation on this, probably if you're going for TDM, use the suppressor. If you're using the P90 otherwise, use the heavy barrel if you can muster the recoil. It's actually relatively funny to be running around with a P90 and a heavy barrel and suddenly having a weapon that can compete with assault rifles on any kind of level other than actual damage output. So that would be my recommendation on how to run the P90, and well, it's an alright gun. It's just not great, frankly, for anything other than close quarter, where it can still struggle in certain situations. Now that's my verdict on the P90. I'd love to hear your opinion on it down below in the comments, as well as your future video suggestions. Those, however, concerning Battlefield 1, please, because there is, as of current, no intentions on my side to do any more Battlefield 4 videos. I'd like to quickly note out or apologize for my voice. I still have a little bit of a flu, a cold going around, so my voice isn't quite fully up to strength. But other than that, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next Battlefield video.